cost recovery and also enable people that have a specific interest in a specific image that can have access to it.
Thank you, and I'm going to ask one more because I know, as Councillor Jackson and myself sitting on the board, we know the history of a lot of the archival material, but maybe, Paul, could you just elaborate where all of this came from and how it was acquired?
So we're celebrating our 100th anniversary of our Canadianic collection. So the Hamilton Public Library was founded in 1889, and we have a long history. And over the years, we've received donations of some very remarkable material. So most of our local history and archives collections has been given to us by Hamiltonians to keep in trust for them. Yes, and the Spectator, we have the, thank you, we have the Spectator archives, all their images are housed at the Hamilton Public Library, and we reached agreement with them to enable to digitize those as well and make them available. So that's a great partnership that we have, and it's nice for the Hamilton Spectator. They don't have to maintain these images, but we can provide access to them.
Thank you very, very much. I think that's great information to have out there, and certainly thank you to the Spectator and all the contributors over the years who've provided documentation so that it can be kept in safekeeping and available to the public for many years to come. But Mr. Deputy Mayor, I want to thank everyone here for the presentations today. I'm not going to go over the numbers. I think the numbers in the presentation speak for themselves. This board has been phenomenal. I have been on this board 10 years, been honored to be on this board for 10 years. They're hardworking, not just the board, but the staff, their love and passion for the library, and the patrons. We can't forget the patrons. They go beyond, above and beyond in many situations, and we certainly had seen some of them that have come forward before the board members over the last number of years. We've had the issues with bed bugs, the bigger issue now with security, and it's always a difficult balance for staff and for board members on how you deal with security issues, especially because we have to be cognizant of the fact that everybody should have the opportunity to enjoy the space at any one of our libraries safely and without fear of injury or approachment or whatever. That feeling, that good feeling, is there, and it's not always easy to achieve as times get tougher. But and as I said, even in the numbers going through, I mean, over 1 million citizens going through our central branch. That's a lot of people going through a branch, and if you go in there today, it looks just as good as the day we reopened it a few years ago. So, kudos again to everyone. I just also wanted to touch on, because Councillor did mention, and I think it's important to elaborate on the Salt Fleet Library. That was a win-win for Stoney Creek, or for the library, and for the Catholic School Board. This was a library facility that was constructed in conjunction with the separate school board back in 1999, I think it was, and I was a Wentworth Library Board member at that time. And it was a great opportunity to take advantage of two bodies working together. But over the time period, we found a shift in space not being as proactively beneficial for the library, but now the school board could use it. So with initiatives that Paul undertook in going and approaching the school board, we were able to accommodate them in taking over the second level. We still have a great library facility on the first level, and we were able to get some monies back into our capital reserves for future initiatives in Stoney Creek. So this is good news. So we haven't lost any facilities in Stoney Creek, and the space has just become much more efficient, which is never bad. Again, a number of programs that are run, and we don't seem to publicize ourselves as much, but we have the local inserts that go in the paper every week. There are numerous programs that have been mentioned throughout this presentation today, but they're all out there to the public that I hope residents will take more opportunity in seeing what's there and getting out, because it is phenomenal. And every year, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I have to say, again, 10 years now, every year is always exciting. You go, what else can they do? What else can they do? Well, every year they surpass. And, I have to say it's an absolute pleasure. It's exciting, especially seeing the new technologies and the staff that are keeping abreast of the new technologies for the benefits of our residents, and being able to do this and come in with the budget numbers that they come in with. So kudos to everyone. Thank you for all the support of staff and the board members here today. And again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I think we all look forward to this presentation every year. It's, I mean, its budgets can be not the most exciting things, but this is always an excellent presentation. Thanks, Councillor Pearson, for your decade of service as well. Councillor Ferguson, please.
Yeah, most of what I was going to say has been repeated. I just wanted to thank the staff and the board for the great work you do in our community. I can never do it as well as Councillor Jackson does. I hope to learn that skill, but he explained it very nicely about the appreciation that we as council and I think the community have of the great work the library does. I'm very impressed that all the staff sitting behind us too. And Brenda's right. They must work for the library because I didn't hear him come in. Just turn around. Who are all these people? But it shows their support, though, for the senior management and the board by taking time out of their busy schedules to come sit here today to support you in your presentation. I know the people of Ancaster are very proud of the Ancaster branch. Tonight's a great day to sit by the fireplace up there and read the paper, and it still looks like it did the day it opened too. And so thanks for the great service you do to my community as well as the whole city. I too will have etched those numbers in my mind about the staffing levels because I still have some tough holdouts in Ancaster on amalgamation, and seeing your numbers drop is a very convincing argument, and I think we should send that down to the professor just so he sees the whole story. And by the way, Paul, 2 weeks, I mean, we have had a snowstorm, a nice storm, and brutal cold weather for a month. If you're only 2 weeks behind, celebrate that. We're going through the same issue with the stadium, and we're on a real tight schedule down there too, working up high. So once again, on behalf of people of Ancaster, thank you for what you do, and thank you for your stuff.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. If I can pass the chair over to Councillor Johnson for a second. Just personal thanks as well. It's outstanding. I used the pulpit to say how impressed we are and how we look forward to this budget presentation a moment ago. But I just had one interest. Yesterday we passed the music strategy for the city, and I'm just wondering what role, and I know there is a role for the public library. I think it was Laura Lukasik I was speaking to a while back. Is Laura here? Oh, there she is in the corner. There's the archives aspect of that, and I know there was a master's paper that was produced out of York University. We wanted to make sure, it was either digitally or paper-wise available, so folks could go and learn about the coffee house history of Hamilton and the music scene in the 60s and 70s. So I think that's in place now, Laura, pretty much. It's in the archives, so I just want to let people know so they can go and see it. So, but just maybe two words or 2 minutes on how you get assist in that front. I mean, there's folks out there we need to interview as they all get older, and we need to get their stories about music in Hamilton, that sort of thing. Paul, your thoughts, Madam Chair?
Sure, and that's great, and we're very excited about the recent developments around the music strategy, and so we're looking at ways that we can support this, and so we'll be bringing to the board in this year looking at our mandate of local history and archives, and we'll have a discussion at the board about making an emphasis on Hamilton's music history as a priority for our local history and archives to support that. Just one other point, or two other points. The board approved funds. We mentioned the renovation of the Hamilton Wentworth through our community foundation. The board also approved funding for a digital media lab on the 4th floor, as well as a makerspace. And one of the things that we're going to be constructing is a recording studio in the library so that we can do interviews and we can create a new space for people to record different kinds of media. We have a pilot with Terry Berry and with Red Hill that's going to be happening over the next few months related to this. But part of this is getting ready for us to support the city's cultural plan. And we've applied for a grant with McMaster University Library, the city, and we're the lead about digital storytelling. And so we're going to be proceeding with that. If we get the grant, one of the things that's going to enable us to do is have some pretty fancy digital displays that will be available at the library to really promote this stuff. So we have a lot of work to do in that area, but it's definitely an area of focus for us.
Well, it's great to hear those kind of things happening. It's excellent. Thanks very much. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Thanks a lot for your time, and move by to receive Councillor Pearson, Councillor Jackson, all in favor. Carried. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Now, Carolyn, our schedule says the Hamilton Police Services are our last presentation for today, starting at 1 o'clock. I'm just wondering whether we might just be a little bit behind that committee. Let's shoot for 1 o'clock. There's lunch provided, I know. So let's be back here just shortly after 1. Thanks very much.
council has had a lot of effort and time put into working with our partners in healthcare and the local community, and His Honor Worship Mayor Bertina was there and Councillor Whitehead were there representing the council, and we can be proud as a city of the work that's just gone on there, because Hamilton Police are great partners with St. Joe's. So today's a remarkable day for Hamilton in opening that facility, so congratulations to the council and to our partners at St. Joe's. Ladies and gentlemen, the presentation of the 2014 budget marks the fifth budget that I proudly present on behalf of the members of the Hamilton Police Service and the Police Services Board. The material that has been provided to you, I apologize for the delay in getting that to the council. The Hamilton Police Service Board only approved the budget on Tuesday afternoon and are presenting it here on Thursday, and all of the materials for you have been prepared in the interim. I want to start today's presentation by thanking the men and women of the Hamilton Police Service. Their outstanding commitment to public service leads this nation in policing services. And today the Hamilton Police Service is very proud to present the lowest budget request in the last 14 years. From 2001 to 2009, 7 of 9 budgets were in excess of 4%, with the highest budget in 2003 of 8%. 4 out of the last 5 budgets that I have been able to present on behalf of the board have been under 4%. This 2014 budget ensures that the service delivery, the level of service delivery, is maintained, and the current staffing level is also maintained. This budget is the funding that is required to maintain adequate and effective delivery of policing services in Hamilton, as is required by statute. The Hamilton Police Service remains committed to providing the members of the community with access to the details pertaining to our ongoing budget discussions of the Hamilton Police Service Board, and our budget reports continue to be available to the public online, posted on our website at hamiltonpolice.on.ca. Public consumption of information, particularly the police budget, is important, and it is available through multiple communications platforms, through social media, that help to inform and educate our citizens. What has been clearly communicated to our great citizens over the last 4 years is the value of the work of our members. Most people really don't know the complete scope and the sheer volume of the work that we do when we work to restore order from chaos. While we have been increasing arrests, while we have been increasing enforcement, we have been decreasing the crime rate, decreasing the crime severity index, decreasing citizen-involved collisions, finding strategies to navigate people through social media, restructuring our organization, finding efficiencies through business re-engineering, and we have found the ability to bring forward the lowest budget request of the last 14 years. The request increase in funding amounts to $4.2 million. The city requested that all agencies, boards, commissions, and divisions meet a 0% target for 2014. The board budget is comprised of 88% salaries and benefits directly under the control of the board. The service, myself, the deputies, our senior managers, we do not negotiate salaries and benefits. The board does that work as required by law. 12% of the board's budget is directly under the control of the command. This is the funding that we use to support our entire operation, items like fleet, facilities, computer services, etc. With the city request of a 0% target, this command, the portion that is under our control of the budget that we are directly responsible for, in our best effort to meet the city's request, we have come in at 0.35%. The 0.35% represents an increase of $485,000. Our commanders have done an excellent job of cost containment, cost avoidance, and alterations to service delivery to make the best effort to meet 0% request, and we are at 0.35. The actual need of the service is 3.65%. We require investment in our human resource business processes. We need to develop a robust time and resource management system, electronic scheduling of officers, and much more robust crime analytics, a business process built right across the organization. This is what must be done in our future in order to continue to advance our strategic programs that are designed to pay off in continued reductions of victimization from crime. So today, the Hamilton Police Service makes recommendation to the Council that you approve the 2014 Police Services operating budget at 2.98%, which is the lowest budget in 14 years. I have to thank supervisors, managers, commanders, and deputies for their diligent work in bringing in the lowest budget for your consideration and approval. We have heard from the public, and they have requested that we find efficiencies and savings where possible, but we have also heard that they do not want a cut in services, they do not want us to withdraw any of our community programs or our crime prevention strategies, nor do they want us to reduce our efforts in enforcement, particularly around the very challenging issues of road and traffic safety involving impaired driving. This budget supports all of our current programming. The City of Hamilton has approved at the Council GIC meeting in 2014 an assessment rate growth of 0.8% for the coming year. Taking into consideration the assessment growth, that rate, as is reported and utilized in many other jurisdictions in the province, the budget request for Hamilton Police Service is reduced to 2.18%. Our business planning process continues to be a leader in the province, and we have just received another award for the best annual report for 2013, a report based on our planning and reporting process. Over the last 5 budget presentations, this service has given out more information than ever before in our history, and we have provided to you again this year much information dealing with justification of our budget. We continue to face significant challenges stemming from legislative changes and changes to demographics and in terms of victimization by criminals. Quite simply stated, the service cannot keep pace with the changing nature of crime in terms of new technology and the rapid expansion of technical crime. The complex social determinants of crime require organized, focused, and complex responses. And the challenges of providing services to the vulnerable persons in our community is tasking police services at levels that have never been seen before. Our city has fared better than many other cities, and we have been voted the best city to invest in for the future. Our building permit issuance, housing starts and completions, and a better unemployment rate than many other cities is encouraging. The Hamilton Police remain at the lower end of the spectrum for 2014 regarding funding requests, and when you consider assessment growth, again, at lower levels, we remain than many other jurisdictions. It is not possible for the Police Services Board to meet the city's request of 0%. The board's required funding for 2014 to support salaries and benefits is 3.14%. The board obligations within the collective agreement produce the following pressures. The annualized cost of new members from last year's budget is 0.57%, and these new members have allowed us to maintain the expectation of service delivery to all of our citizens across this great city. And it has also allowed us to maintain our current programs. 0.35% is comprised of the areas listed before you. The city charges us for their services, and they have increased their fees this year by $145,000 downloaded to the Police Services Board. Without the city download, our actual request of the Hamilton Police Service would be 0.24%. We are required by statute to provide policing in all areas. Our programs are strategic and built on a long history of success with our community partners. Outstanding achievements of the last 5 years include increased arrests, decreases in crime, no displacement or dispersion of crime to other areas of the city, administrative excellence in policy management, with no recommendations being made to the Hamilton Police Service in the most recent ministry audit. 9 major awards were earned for the citizens of Hamilton by our members in their commitment to excellence in policing. These are outstanding achievements. Every major performance measurement metrics shows extremely positive results. Crime rates are falling at a greater rate of decline than in many other cities. Violent crime and total crime severity measures are at the lowest levels they have been in our history. While this is very encouraging, Hamilton has an awful long way to go, with challenges of being still higher than the provincial averages with respect to crime. And we are failing in our clearance rates when compared to other services as a result of our lower staffing levels of civilian and back office staff that are required for follow-up investigation and completions. Youth crime is trending down, but recently is seeing a spike, and that spike in youth crime needs to be addressed. We have seen profound decreases in violent crime, and they are apparent through our deployments, our enforcement, our action strategy, and our drug enforcement is up 40%. You have seen the slides that I have here before you. I remind you about the gains in reducing violence, and in our calls for service. As we look at these slides here that are presenting violent calls for service, you will see that as we start in 2009, the changes in the form of crime over 2009 versus 2012. This slide in front of you represents the assaults across the city in 2009. I draw to your attention the issues out in the West End, Central Mountain, and heading over towards Stony Creek. You can see very significant reductions in assaults that are occurring right across the city. What is very important as we go back to 2009, what is very important as you see the slide changed to 2012 is you are seeing no new emerging areas that will require strategic deployment. That's the issue of assaults. The slide you have before you is probably
15 that you hired last year. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
No.
I'm very pleased that the mounted unit has been maintained by the police board. It's one of those particular areas of our police service that I'm a big fan of, and I am very happy the board has maintained that. Chief, under policing context, one of your earlier slides, you said changing demographics, growing heterogeneity of society, aging population, I get that one, diversity concerns. On the growing heterogeneity and diversity concerns, could you elaborate a little bit, please, of the challenges?
Challenges, first of all, let's focus inside the organization and drawing people from our community in to be members of our police service so that we can better reflect the community, something that is required in statute. Part of our HR policy, we are reaching out to many of the demographics of the city, in fact, all of them, in an effort to make our organization a more inclusive organization and employer of choice, and in turn that helps us to provide a better service back to the community. Challenges that continue to face us within that component of our society, aging population, clearly what we're seeing there is a change in the nature of crime. One of the emerging areas from last year is elder abuse and senior abuse, and within elder and senior abuse, one of the challenges, in fact, presenting itself is the abuse of power of attorney. Power of attorney being the people who have been selected by those individuals to protect and guardian them. We're seeing a rise in criminal activity around the abuse of power of attorney. With respect to young people, as you saw in the slides, the drug enforcement of the service is up over 40% over the last 4 years. One of the challenges is the group of young people in our community between the age of 12 and 17, and the number of drug charges in the last 5 years has increased almost 100%. So we have very real challenges within the different demographics, and trying to pull all of those issues together to be delivering the service that we can as efficiently effective at a cost, at a reasonable cost. We're facing those significant challenges, which we're putting pressure on our staff and our investigators.
Thanks so much, Chief, for educating me on those areas. I didn't realize until you explained and elaborated, so it's very important for me as a member of council to know. Chief, I want to thank you and your executive team. You've made tremendous inroads. I've said consistently, you've been a very visible chief, and I've always been very, very impressed with your knowledge of operations. Thank you as a mountain councillor for the stability you've provided in the last year, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for the permanent appointments up on Division 3 with Superintendent Weatherall and Inspector Huss. I greatly appreciate it, and the community does, when they have continuity in the leadership of the various divisions. And for me, obviously, I interact mostly with Division 3. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I just want to say, in light of how recent Councillor Bernie Morelli's passing has been, and the beautiful funeral service with the full police escort and honor guard, Chief, which I want to thank you for. I just want to say, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Ferguson, as the brand new chairman of the board and the other board members, I truly believe Councillor Morelli's mark is on this budget and this 2.98% presentation today. And I truly believe, looking down from heaven, he'd be very, very, very proud of this budget here today and would be strongly supportive of it. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much, Chief DeCare.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jackson. I've got Councillor Partridge, followed by Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and Chief. Welcome. Thank you for the presentation. And I have to agree with the previous comments. It was very heartwarming, actually, to come out of the church and see the mounted units there, and just the, tremendous presence of police, fire, and EMS. It was truly wonderful. But I need to pass on some comments to you. I don't have any questions, but Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you, I need to pass on some comments from my community. When we saw up on the slide you showed about the difference between 2009 and 2012, and certainly in the Flamborough area, the rural area, not much change, dark blue, light blue, very low crime. But what I'm hearing from my community are on two fronts. Thank you, there it is there. I hear a couple of things. The speeding on country roads is really unbelievable. It's out of control, and it's ridiculous. And we have been able to, through our crime manager, Myra James, she's doing a good job, and putting the police out there. They're issuing tickets for, an average speed limit of 78 kilometers in a 60 zone. That's the type of thing that we're dealing with. But what I'm hearing from my residents are on two fronts. So number one, it is that there's not enough police presence out there. And we absolutely get where the police need to concentrate, where the high crime rates are. But, I can't help but wonder and think that perhaps there's a different approach that needs to be taken with just how we rotate police officers out into the, the lower crime areas such as Waterdown and rural areas of Flamborough. And the other thing I'm hearing is that we don't have a location to go to. Certainly Waterdown is growing. It's going to double in population in the next 3 to 5 years. But still, to do a crime report Monday to Friday, no problem, between 8:30 and 4:30. Monday to Friday, they go to Dundas, they can write out the report. If anything happens on the weekend, or if anything happens outside of those hours, they need to drive all the way over to Division 3 on the mountain or downtown. And in some cases, that's a 45-minute drive for some of my residents. So, I'm still hearing it would be so nice if we just had a location in Waterdown that we could see more police presence. So I pass that on to you through you, Deputy Mayor. We've had that conversation before, but it's starting to get a little bit louder in the past couple of years, and I wouldn't mind having that conversation further offline with you. Thank you.
Take that under advisement, I guess, in terms of the direction, Councillor Partridge, and follow up outside, unless you'd like to respond, Chief, for now. Okay, fair enough. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and sorry for my tardiness. I did see the chief and, of course, the mayor. We had a terrific event with the grand opening of the new Jaravinsky Integrated Healthcare Hospital on the mountain. And, of course, the chief was there, so it was a bit of a rush, and I had to make a presentation at the end of the events and the festivities. So sorry for my tardiness, but that's where I was. I want to say that police budgets are always a challenge. We've identified the issues, and the chief has identified the issues in the context of over 80% of the burden is actually on the payroll. It's the benefits and salary and so forth. And of course, we know that one of the challenges is the arbitration system. So to provide a responsible budget, you need to take a look at how much discretionary dollars are there. I know that Councillor Ferguson, myself, and Walter did whatever we could, quite frankly, to look at any opportunities there might be within the budget subsequent to its original presentation. And I can tell you that we work with Ken Leendhurst and John, and we're quite satisfied that there isn't a lot of fat on this bone. In fact, there's no fat on the bone. And the only way to lower the police services budget is you need to be laying off officers. Well, we've already heard, I think we just heard from Judy, the issue of presence and so forth. I'm sure we're going to hear that from other councillors. So this is not a time to be laying off officers by any stretch of the imagination. And there has been arguments about how lean our police force is in compared with many other agencies across Ontario and across the country for that matter. So having said that, the chief has come in with a budget that is actually less than was originally expected and originally, I think, indicated to Mike Zagarek at 2.98%. I believe that the board did everything they practically could to ensure that this is the best budget that come forward. I think, but most of that work was done, quite frankly, before it got to the board, and that was done by the professionals through the city, through the management, the chief, the deputies, and everyone else, the superintendents, and everyone else was involved in looking for savings and streamlining processes within the police services. So I am wholeheartedly, and I don't think I've said this in a while, wholeheartedly supporting this budget before us here today, and would ask and thank all our police services, and that goes right down to the front line, women and men and women. But I will be wholeheartedly supporting this budget before us here today.
Thanks, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Duval.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Chief, for coming in and explaining the budget. Just a couple of questions. Through my Ward 7, and some of the residents have a concern, and that was, I guess, because of the increase from last year and then the increase from this year. But when I read your report, it makes sense. But the 7-year strategic staffing plan identified a need for additional officers in 2014, but we're not going to do that. Is that what I understand?
That's correct.
So in 2013, we didn't really actually, I understand the officers were hired late and they go through a graduation, so they'll be utilized for this year?
That's correct.
So basically we're hiring 14 officers for this year. Even though we might have hired them in 2013, we didn't utilize them, but the actual cost will come to us now for 2014. Would that be correct?
There certainly is an annualized cost that will carry forward every year, but they were predominantly, the bulk of that acquisition was in the 2013 budget. Where we ran into challenges was with the Ontario Police College, who actually closed the college for an intake of recruits. That was one of the reasons that we were delayed. Again, a decision that is not something the Hamilton Police Service has anything to do with. The province made the decision to close the college and take that one class out. That delayed those people getting onto the street. What it also delayed for the Hamilton Police Service was supplementing into the challenging areas, and in Central Mountain, your area, there has been 5 of those new officers assigned to a zone car in the 4 busiest beats within Central Mountain in order to alleviate the pressures that are occurring for policing and the subsequent issues on when those officers are dealing, the pressures, the response times, times start to get impacted. We start to hear from citizens about those delays. So what was delayed was getting those new officers into that new zone patrol area in order to enhance what was going on there. So we're through that now. Those officers are assigned there. And what we have been able to do, which is very good for the service, is we have been able to continue. You mentioned the 7-year strategic staffing plan. It's all laid out there. Everything is open for everybody to see what our challenges are and where the service needs to go. And I've said from day one, minute one with that plan, it's the plan. But we'll look at business process reengineering and other alternative strategies for service delivery so that we can evaluate that plan and those needs as we move forward. Looking at the raw numbers right now that have been produced for 2012 and 13, that would indicate, those numbers would indicate to me that the Hamilton Police Service is roughly 80 people short in officers and civilians. We don't need to make those requests until we finish our business process reengineering, until we maximize our efficiencies. Things like I mentioned earlier at the beginning of my presentation, the St. Joe's protocol. How we now take people to St. Joe's and transfer responsibility from the police organization to the healthcare system. We have saved ourselves over 6,000 officers' hours in time in the emergency room with our just sitting in the waiting room because we have a new protocol in place. And I have to congratulate Dr. Higgins and his staff for working with us and getting that done. So while we were delayed in getting the people in, we continue our business process reengineering. We keep looking for alternative strategies, and we will reevaluate. That report that you referred to was prepared, research 2010, authored 2011, and although it goes forward 7 years, we would be in the position probably by the end of this year to have to reevaluate that staffing plan.
And I thank you, Chief, for that, but I guess what I'm getting at is the hiring of the 15 officers at the end of 2013 basically wasn't budgeted for in the 2013 budget. It was coming into the 2014 budget. I mean, that's what it shows, correct?
No, that's not correct. It was in the 2013 budget with a .57 carryover to 2014 at 100, John, 154? The .57, the carryover for the annualized cost into 2014.
Yeah, that's about the annualized portion for 2014 impact is approximately $800,000.
$800,000.
And did we spend that $800,000 in 2013?
No.
No.
That's the 2014 part.
That's my point. That's what I'm getting at. We didn't budget for the whole year for new officers. So why I'm trying to say this is that in this, it's kind of confusing saying that we're going to continue on to 2013 staffing levels when we really didn't have those 14 officers in 2013 as we hired them late to go doing their training and graduation. So we are increasing the actual staff by 14 people this year.
That's not correct. They were accounted, budgeted, and counted on strength in 2013. They were hired in 2013. The numbers were charged to 2013. As with every single person in the organization, they carry over expenses to 2014. So the answer is there is not a single person that has been hired in the 2014 budget.
Okay, thanks for that, Chief. And the other one, on your actual presentation, on your slides there, I'm glad to hear about Concession Street area, but I just want to make a comment. I mean, these are good numbers that I see going down. This is a positive step going forward. But I'm going to take this to the BIA because that's not what they're telling us. What I'm hearing from them is they don't have enough police presence. In fact, we get complaints and I try to forward them on to the police department to say, okay, so I am going to show them this to say, you know what, this is what's been presented, and crime has gone down considerably in concession, and not what they're saying. But I think we're going to get pushback from there because that's not what they're feeling.
We stand absolutely beside our research and our statistics. Dealing with crime and crime taking place in the area is very different than dealing with the perception of crime in the area. And we've heard now from Councillor Partridge and yourself about increased visibility, increased presence in a neighborhood. Those are factors of staffing, and we're happy to engage in that dialogue. Councillor Partridge does not have the same storefront operation type of police facility that is on Concession Street. We'll have to enter those discussions. They're all a factor of finance and staffing and availability of officers.
Okay, I appreciate that, Chief. Just a couple more questions. And knowing that those numbers are going down in concession, has the crime increased somewhere else on the mountain? Do we see spots going up, like it's being shifted over to maybe another neighborhood?
As I would remind you to the slides that we saw with respect to calls for service, assaults, and robberies, there are no new emerging areas that we will have to restructure and change the way that we're delivering visible policing. The real challenge for us is the changing nature of crime around the issues of technology. Technology crimes now, which are getting much, much larger and more complex, are going to require investments into building the detection system for the police service. So I'll give you an example. One of the recent warrants, a series of warrants that we executed, we seized 27 terabytes of information. All of that information has to be brought in and secured as evidence. It has to be replicated so that it can be searched without contaminating the original evidence. That's duplication of server sizes and storage space. And then the case is so big, we've actually had to farm out components of it because we physically don't have the resources to do this. So technology crime, frauds, misappropriation of funds, all of those things that are really much more in the electronic world are causing us very significant pressures. And I haven't even really gone into a full explanation of the issues of bullying and internet sexting that is really pushing its way through our young people, and so much work has to be done in that area in both prevention and detection. And we have seen some of the issues across our country with respect to young people and sexting that has actually led to the commission of people dying by suicide. So there's a real pressure that is emerging. And then when you take into consideration the investigative part, but where the data is stored in off-site servers, out-of-country servers, offshore servers, and what are the agreements with how we access that information, this is a real challenging area for the future.
Okay, thanks. And my last question is just, if I heard you correctly, I just want to make sure so I can report back, because I found that encouraging also, was of the 14 officers, did I hear you say correctly, it gives the mountain people access to another 5 additional officers in that area when the crime is needed, when it's needed?
5 new officers have been put into the mountain. 5 new officers have been put into the East End station, and that complement was also with replacement of some officers. So physically new officers going into the East End and the mountain were 8 each.
Okay, thanks very much, appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Duvall. I've got Councillor Johnson, followed by Councillor Farr. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief, for your very last budget before us. I believe you won't be back again for a budget meeting next year. I will miss you. Having said that, I just have a couple of questions plus comments. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was, when I was looking through the budget, you've got police choir, the pipe band, and they're all very, very good presence for the community, and I know people appreciate it. They're very talented individuals. Do you have, or have you any plans for the Women in Law build? Somewhere support in there, or is it just more, emotional support? What, do you have anything in place?
No, we have a structured program in place for the Women in Law Build. We have, from my office, we have approved that as a program that would be supported by the Chief of Police and our organization. We do have members of our service that are immediately working at the committee level. We have members of our service that are working in volunteer roles with the Will Build. And the other important thing is we have a fundraiser coming up, and the fundraiser coming up, we have to raise $120,000. $120,000. So all of you are welcome to attend.
Carmen's, February the 11th, yes?
I'm not soliciting, but the counselor is.
There you go.
But what we've also done is the board on Tuesday night, I asked the board for a sponsorship of $1,000, and that was approved, and the committee has been informed of the board's support. So we will have ticket sales, but we also have the sponsorship of the board.
Awesome, thank you very much for that. Also, could you please go to the slide that shows the robberies? It's the geographical map that you have. I believe it is 32. There you go. Being very parochial here, sir, I don't see Mount Hope or Bimbrook on there. Is that to suggest that there are no incidences there, or it's getting better, it's getting worse? Do you have any comment why they're not even on the map?
What you see before you doesn't mean that there are none. It just means that in the statistical analysis, they don't reach the level. These are temporal maps that show the frequency of crime across areas that help us to deploy our officers specifically into those areas. Where you don't see any colors, really, there's not a lot of reason to be putting enhanced efforts in those areas because there's not a lot of high crime. Distribution of police officers by geography is extremely expensive, and it doesn't work. Driving around looking for bad people because we need to be in an area doesn't work. What often happens in that scenario is you'll have two beat patrol zones, one side by each, and if you staff by geography, you'll have one police officer in each. The police officer in zone number 1 could be 20 calls behind and running off their feet and go. The police officer in zone 2, if you're staffing by geography, could have no calls for service, not an efficient use of their time. So what we try to do is we try to balance all of that work out by beat, by zone, by division, and then by city. And that's why this analysis really helps us to determine where we need to be. And Rita Lee Irvine and Debbie Gifford are our analysts and help with our strategic deployment of officers. This is much more complex than what you see in front of you. This is a temporal display. There is also seasonal fluctuation. Crime is different on day shift than night shift, and we have all of that analyzed so that we know how and when to deploy our officers.
And thank you for that. I think it was very beneficial when you came out to both my communities and gave a presentation, and we often referred to the dots. You don't have enough dots, and I think that mapping in itself was really, it helped people to understand why they don't see a police officer standing inside the village just walking around talking to everyone. And this is more for comment than anything else, sir. We had an ATV problem, and we still do. I must admit we still do. But working with your department, working with the conservation authorities, working with the ATV clubs, we were able to come together and get a brochure together. You have your ATV squad that goes out. And I can tell you from anecdotal that I don't get very many calls anymore because it's effective, it's working. Just even the education piece, I think, made a big, huge difference. So thank you very much for that. My 2 comments, by the way, is I have been in this office for just over 3 years. I probably have had 7 crime managers. Every time I seem to get to know one moves on to the next one. And I get that. It's just consistency, and it's just frustrating on my level. So I don't know whether the crime manager position, is this a stepping stone or is it, I don't understand. Can you just explain that to me so that I can understand that when I'm talking to the public and they're asking who's this next person?
Well, we appreciate the focus that we put on succession planning and on consistency in providing that service. The police service is actually a very organic organization, and people get an opportunity to transfer. People get an opportunity to take courses, to develop their skills, to transfer to other units, to apply for promotion, and that causes an ongoing challenge of consistency within offices. What we really try to do is make sure that the right people are in there with the right set of skills, and they can deliver the best service. But consistency is an issue because of the mobility of our work staff. Is it something that I see changing immediately? No. Again, a lot of that is the decisions of the officers too in their profession. professional career, what they wish to do, and part of it is driven clearly through the job postings, collective agreement issues, staff development. They're allowed to apply. Although we have offices where there is tenure, and we can leave people in an office for a certain amount of time, it would be both not appropriate for them to get all the training, be in the position, and decide to leave, and it would be less appropriate for me to allow them in a position and I go and yank them out. So there's that balance that we're constantly in tension about.
So I don't have to worry about taking this personally, is what you're saying?
No, don't take it personal.
Okay, that's great. I too also have the issue with not only rural speeding, and I just got a story from one of the new crime manager that he clocked 105 and a 60, and that's pretty norm for some of the roads. We also recognize it's a cat and mouse game, because as soon as something's set up and they know that they're set up, then the driving habit will change for that day to avoid that location. But truck routes are also an issue. We've got our roads are not built for them. So that's why we try to tend to get them onto a specific truck route. So again, cat and mouse game. So I appreciate the frustration, because it's frustrating for my residents, it's frustrating for myself, and for your department as well. I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've helped me do. The reason I pointed out Mount Hope and Binbrook is that we've done a lot of work in there for the youth. Your departments have been really supportive and going in there and taking care of some things. We've put some things in place to hopefully avoid any future problems. So thank you very much, sir. And next time, let's just get Binbrook and Mount Hope up there for me. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Farr.
I see Binbrook and Mount Hope up there. I thought I saw Binbrook and Mount Hope. No? It's a little slice, okay. Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you, and briefly, we're on the budget itself and on the number itself, and as been mentioned by our first speaker today, we're looking at something that is actually $1.1 million less of a tax load than what we had anticipated, than what we were initially going to be working with through our finance staff's assessments, and that's an immense load. And generally speaking, Chief, is there, I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing softwares jumping out on me where you've found some savings and your team has found some savings. Is there any one area where you're really cut and effectively to find this number presented to us today, or is it generally across the board?
I think we've taken a strategic look at every account in every division and every unit across the board, and we have really worked hard to be as efficient as we can in all of those units. Some of the real big issues that have presented themselves over time is the investment that is required in order to create savings or cost avoidance. And I'll give you the example. A number of years ago, we did the replacement of the boilers and chillers at Central Main Station with the green energy program in place. Essentially, they now have paid for themselves in the savings that we would have expected and extrapolated over time on our energy costs. So every part of the service has contributed.
So if we can just go to the animated sweeping slide from 2009 to 2012, I've been privy to a few of your presentations, as most years, BIAs and so forth, community meetings, Chief, where you practice before you come see us here. And this one really speaks volumes. There's no doubt about it. And it did in the community meetings that I was sitting in, where you presented these sweeping slides. They are animated. You're not as animated. But these are facts, and stats don't lie. And we've tackled things, I think, clearly, as far as I can see, in our core, innovatively, obviously creatively. I've mentioned this before publicly, and I'm quite proud of that, and I know you are as well. I mean, award-winning stuff you're doing with action teams, and of course you mentioned it again with our social navigator. The inner city, however, when you do the sweep, is still red. I mean, it's undeniable. And so, in hearing, 15 new officers, 5 on the Hill and 5 in the East End, I'm going to assume the other 5 are going to be devoted to further reductions of that big red blob through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
The
Or smaller red blob, how's that? I'll stretch.
Yes, much smaller. Yes, we have deployed the other 5 to Central Station, and we have continued to support our downtown programs with respect to the action strategy, bail compliance, social navigator, again, providing services to people and getting them out of the criminal justice system. We have equitably deployed those officers, keeping in mind that we are balancing response time standards. We're balancing the priority calls, 0s 1 to 4, for all of this, for the entire city. I think we're in a very good position to continue our programs where we are. This budget that is before you allows us to maintain the same strategy, and we will look for enhancements as they come forward. We'll look for changes in the strategy as research is done. We've just completed doing a full bit of research in relation to homicide and the best way to approach in a strategic manner the investigations of homicide to maximize your information and opportunity to succeed while containing costs. That work has already been done, so we're constantly looking at those. I have great confidence that for the remainder of this year, those programs will stay in place in the downtown area.
Okay, thanks for the response. Thanks for your leadership over the years, Chief DeCare, and thank you for the time, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Farr. If I can pass the chair over, Councillor Johnson, and speak for a moment. Just thanks, Chief DeCare and the police service for this year's budget. And just a personal thanks for the work in the west end of the city. When I was elected in 2003, started working with, I think it was Staff Sergeant Scott Raston at that point. And I believe at that point the community policing model and the crime manager model was just coming in. And I think we had an opportunity to pilot that program in the West End. We had the challenges, as you know, with the student housing and a lot of the parties that would occur around the university in those neighborhoods. And over the 10 years since, a substantive improvement. If you had a micro map on the kind of challenges we had in the Ainsleewood-Westdale neighborhood, I'm sure you would see a same reduction down to the minuscule red areas. From that perspective, you can see it here to some extent on the large map. But if you micro mapped it, I bet you'd see even a larger decrease, and that's substantive. So just a large plug for the Crime Manager program. We have Sergeant Shermoli right now as our Crime Manager, and he's doing a fantastic job in the long series of, probably 5 or 6 crime managers we've had over the years. So a tremendous job from those individuals. And again, just in the Strathcona neighborhood, theft from vehicles is down a radical percentage over the last year or so. So the kind of trends you're showing across the city are certainly reflected in the West End significantly. So I want to thank you for that as well. And I think those are quite creative programs. The crime managers by ward, the ability for us to work with an individual on specific problems, understanding there's problems right across the city, right across the service. And the improvements throughout the city that we see with the large maps in front of us here tell the story, I think, in a very strong way. So just thanks from me for the work that you're doing, the service is doing, and look forward to this coming year. Take the chair back, Madam Chair, or Madam previous Deputy Mayor. Any other questions or comments from committee this afternoon? Okay, so thanks very much, Chief and Hamilton Police Service this afternoon. And what we're doing at this point in time is just receiving all the presentations. And I think we may have missed one this morning. We had a quorum issue at one point. So at this point, I think I'd like to ask for a motion just to receive all the presentations that Councillor Marula, did you want to speak?
I just want to emphasize that I think in the funeral, and I know Councillor Jackson had referenced it, but the police presence and the ceremonial effort at Councillor Morelli's funeral, I think is second to anything I've personally experienced. And I just want to thank the Chief and the police services for an exceptional job that particular day. Thank you.
Indeed, yes, definitely. Okay, so a motion to receive all the presentations today. Councillor Pearson, Ferguson, all in favor, carried. And then what we're doing, of course, is adjourning, recessing this meeting until tomorrow morning at 9:30, and we have the arts organizations coming to visit us tomorrow. So motion to recess until then. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Duval, all in favor, carried. Thank you.